Well, so much for hot girl summer. Don't end up like me. Find out how we're gonna stay cool this summer with the thermostatic sandwich adapter. Stay tuned. What's up guys? Welcome back to Vibrant Performance TV. My name is Tony. Today we have my 2018 370Z in here for a thermostatic sandwich adapter install, along with an oil cooler, some PTFE fittings, hoses, line separators, and obviously we'll be doing an oil change as well. Hope you guys are hungry because we're about to make a sandwich. Before we get started, let's dive into some reasons why a thermostatic sandwich adapter may be good for you. If you're like me and your car serves as double duty as a street and track car, a thermostatic sandwich adapter will help you keep your oil cool in high performance scenarios and during your day-to-day commute. The thermostat in our sandwich adapter fully opens at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. This means that your oil will not be overcooled in the colder months and will stay well regulated during the warmer months. It's important to know that oil works best at protecting your engine when it is at operating temperatures. With a thermostatic sandwich adapter, your oil temps will be able to rise to what's ideal, as it would from the factory, yet remain cool enough during high performance driving to prevent the oil from breaking down and thinning out at higher temperatures. Although a thermostatic sandwich adapter paired with an oil cooler is an excellent solution to those who like to push their vehicles to the limit, always make sure you are using the correct grade of oil for your application. Now, let's begin this install. This is the bane of my existence. They always break, this one did not. These, I feel, will be quite difficult to remove. I hope not. Let's see. Oh, wow, this is gnarly. Oh! Yeah, that's why. Well, that was easy. We didn't have to enlist any help for that. That was extremely easy. Now on to removing the rebar. So, didn't have to remove this. I think only for the Nismo models because they have a chassis damper going across. Good thing I didn't spend that extra money. As in, I spent the wrong money. Anyways. Alright guys, now that we got the cooler mocked up, I'm going to go ahead and install this thermostatic sandwich adapter onto the oil filter housing, and let's see how that goes. I should mention that like many things in life, it's always good to go in lubed. So what we would recommend is pouring in some oil into a little cap, like this, and making sure the O-ring is lubed up before installing it onto the actual housing. Very much like an oil filter, because this basically acts as that. Not really. When you're installing the thread adapter for this thermostatic sandwich plate, make sure you include the locking tab that is included in this kit. Very important if you don't want your sandwich adapter spinning around as you're tightening it. One key thing to note, there is a hole over here for this small tab on the locking tab to go in. Just make sure that is lined up before you tighten the whole thing down. Otherwise, it kind of defeats the purpose of having this locking tab. Well, now comes the fun part. We're going to go ahead and start assembling our lines. When you get these new PTFE hoses, just make sure when you're unraveling these, you're cutting away from the hoses. Safety first, obviously, which is why I'm using an exposed razor. But again, cut away from it. That way you're not risking any damage to the lines. Or you can just unravel it yourself. But comes with some tape around it already. And we'll take away this as well. Just be careful you don't damage the nylon on the nylon braid on this hose. It's a lot easier than I'm making it seem. Nice. Well, that was easy. If you guys watched our other video with Cassius on assembling these PTFE lines, you'll know that to get these started, we are gonna probably wanna grab a small flathead screwdriver and get this in between the PTFE lining and the actual braiding on the outside. Be careful, just make sure you're not damaging the actual PTFE on the inside. This is when you undo this end of the hose fitting. These PTFE fittings will come with an olive. This olive is what you want to get between the braid and the PTFE. So I'm going to put this down. Get this in, just make sure it is seated flat or level with the rest of the hose. If you're having some trouble with it, you can always put it down on the table and push it down like this. If you look closely in here, the edge of the PTFE should meet the lip of the olive. And this should also be flat, and it's not. So I'm going to continue making it level. Once the olive's in, just take a screwdriver and make sure the inside is all flush with the edge of the olive, or as flush as possible. This should be fine. And we're gonna go ahead, put this into our magnetic vice jaws. Very nice piece. When you're putting the assembly into these vice jaws, just make sure you leave a bit of room. And when you're installing these actual fittings into the hose over here, just spritz it with a bit of WD-40 just to make it a bit easier to install. As I've said many times, many things in life work better when they're lubed up. So. Oh, be very careful when you're installing these because they're quite tricky. Sorry, they're not tricky. They can be a bit easy to cross thread them. So when you're threading them in, make sure you're not running into any resistance at all. Like such. All right, so once they're finger tight, ideally we'd want to bring it up back onto the Z, mock it up, make sure the curvature of the hose bends in the ways we want it to bend. So we're going to go back to the Z, test fit this, make sure it's good. If it's good, then we'll come back with one of these AN wrenches and tighten it down. All right, so we got one hose test fitted on. You're going to see these zip ties here just to help secure it in place. One thing about these, when making custom lines, is that you want to make sure the route the hose takes doesn't involve any kinking, everything flows smoothly. So what we have planned for the Z is we're going to have one of these hoses run across from just in front of the oil pan, going through a hole up there, come out through the front of the car, come in through here, do a roller coaster tycoon activity over here, should go in from this side, circulate into the oil cooler, come out from this side, and then continue traveling towards the driver's side, back through that hole, down here behind the oil pan, and into the sandwich adapter. That should work, right? All right, guys, so before we get this cooler installed onto the car, we gotta make sure we fill it with oil, and make sure you have one of these funnels, put it in one side, open this, and then these cores should take about 1 liter of oil, or approximately 1 quart. I honestly have no idea how much I'm putting in right now, so I'm gonna check. Looks fine to me. I'm gonna add some more. Nothing like the good old guess and check method. Oh, I can hear it. Oh, I'm starting to see it. Okay, one more for good measure. All right, this looks to be about okay. Nice. So keep in mind, as the oil goes in, it will go across the entire cooler. So give it some time to settle, and then maybe add a bit more if needed, but I think I will do that. We are good. Nice. Nice. Now that is a full core. And then we're going to go ahead and reinstall this -10 ORB to AN fitting. Never a bad idea to lube up the O-ring. And thankfully I spilled a bit on the outside, so I'll just use that oil. Careful not to cross thread it. Boom! And then we'll tighten that with an AN wrench. All right, well, let's go put this on the car. You'll probably cut that out, right? Nice. Why use hands when you have technology? Nice, cool. You know what they say, cross-threading is nature's Loctite. So, and that's not going anywhere. All right, so now that we have our hoses assembled, we're going to go ahead and install them. For me, I decided to go with a dry brake system. This makes it a bit easier to interchange cores for future product development that we may be doing. It's as easy as just clicking it in, pushing it down, rotate, and it seals quite nicely like that. I'm gonna keep them apart while I install them just to make it easier so I don't have to thread these hoses through all these factory holes. And yeah, we're almost there. So, very important tip. Make sure you don't torque this down just yet prior to installing some of the fittings, just to help you with clocking this correctly. With the Z's, we actually had to switch out one of the supplied ORB adapters with a 90-degree ORB to AN, just to help with fitting clearance. The original plan actually was to use one of these, but as you can see, the 180 would have gone down a lot further, especially with an AN, with one of the supplied adapters. And this would have became the lowest point in the car, which is not advisable, especially if you're doing any sort of driving on any road. We're gonna go ahead and install the fittings and lines, and then we'll torque this down after everything's all loosely tied up. So the way we routed one of these lines was I'm gonna have one tucked right behind the oil pan there, and this one's gonna go up and above. We'll start off with this side first. Again, just having this dry brake makes it so much easier to install because we don't have to worry about threading anything through any of these holes just yet. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and install this. All right, now we're gonna install this other end, and we're gonna start threading it through this little passageway just between the fender liner and whatever this part is. what might actually be useful is if you temporarily secure this up here so the line isn't flailing about and making life much more difficult than it needs to be. And now we're gonna go ahead and connect these two dry brakes. I made the lines much longer than they needed to be, so they might be a bit difficult to close, but if you measure correctly, it should be extremely easy. You know what they say, measure twice, cut once. Whereas me, I measured once and cut twice. There you go. All right. So one thing to remember when you're installing this, after you've torqued it down to 45 pound-feet, make sure you secure that locking tab there by bedding it in. It's a little bit hard to get to, especially in this setup. If you have a top-mounted oil filter, it might be a bit easier. What I did was, first of all, damage it a bit, but I got it started with a very small pry bar and then got it to mount flushly with a large set of pliers, but make sure you wrap it with something soft as to not mar the surface of the adapter nut. But yeah, once you have this torqued down, just make sure you secure that lock, you punch in that lock tab and get everything else torqued down, and we should be good to install the filter and add oil after. So let's get going. All right guys, so we started the car up. Thankfully, no leaks. This is actually my first time installing anything fluid delivery related, and it was extremely helpful having our video on how to install PTFE lines and how to assemble them and whatnot. But like I said, no leaks. Everything checks out fine. When you do turn on the car for the first time, make sure you check the oil levels afterwards if you weren't able to pre-fill the filter. Also, our sandwich adapters are, the thermostat's a little bit open throughout the whole time. So some of the oil will go into the lines already. So that will be another reason to check your oil levels shortly after startup. When I did the startup, I did notice I was basically down from the max all the way to just under the minimum line. So again, make sure to check your oil, extremely important. But other than that, let's get this car off the lift and drive her out. All right guys, that's a wrap. The thermostatic sandwich adapter is installed, oil cooler is installed, car's all buttoned up, she's ready to go. The good thing is the sandwich adapters already come with an MPT port, so I'll be using that to monitor my oil pressures. For now, car's gonna head out of the shop, and I'm gonna take it to the track and put that thermostatic sandwich adapter to good use. See you next time.